Madagascar films were the spawn of theories so unexplainably horrifying that it shocks me to my core. The Mort theory, the Todd theory, the Sky Gods conspiracy, I could go on. But today, I felt that I was due to make a video on the ever-changing question that Reddit has not stopped debating on, the location where all of this started, the most frightening and most sickening place in all of DreamWorks. The Island of Madagascar scares me. Its tropical vibe of sorts, the mysterious jungle that makes up for 80% of the island, I feel frightened by this. Various different theories have been created in the past by random Reddit, Twitter, and even YouTube users, but today I have taken all of your questions and I have found an answer. According to Reddit user James the Ice Queen, Madagascar might in fact be the afterlife. He made a good little theory that was backed up well with solid evidence, which admittedly had me questioning for quite some time about just how valid it really was. The basic premise of what this user is trying to get around is that when the four main Madagascar characters get tranked, well, his theory is that instead of the New York police using tranquilizer darts to shoot them, it was actually real bullets, and they called Madagascar PG. The whole weird hallucination sequence that followed after Alex gets shot may appear to be a funny old joke, but as I dwelled on the possibilities for what this thing could be, I dared to search up the simple question: what happens right before you die? I scrolled down a bit and more, and wait. According to a website which I can't pronounce properly, and so I'm not going to add it in the video because I might be offensive, one of the several things that living creatures experience in literally their last moments are visions and hallucinations. Let me dig deeper. Visual or auditory hallucinations are often part of the dying experience. The appearance of family members or loved ones who have died in the past is common. These visions are considered normal. The dying may turn their focus to another world and talk to people or see things that others do not see. This can be unsettling and loved ones may not know how to respond. That pretty much explains the entire moment. Alex starts to experience unusual and quite frankly odd hallucinations of his loved ones in the final moments before he died. He sees Gloria as the Statue of Liberty go out of position and smack him with her torch thingy, sending stars everywhere. And the second time this happens, which is literally about 30 seconds later, proves my point even further. The 10 of them all wake up in crates labeled with their specific species. They soon realize that they are all in fact on a boat that is headed for Kenya. The penguins break out of their crates and head for the control room, where they take out the captain of the ship and a worker along the way. They quickly hack the code to the ship's controls and make an immediate U-turn towards Antarctica, sending the four mains off the ship. This is a very mysterious sort of location for the franchise, and the things on that ship is weirdly frightening. We get a glimpse of how it's not just those animals on the boat. We can see 4 different full piles of crates with animals. There's probably hundreds on that ship. It's like a fortress. And of course, they have their own control room overlooking everything. This boat is fully isolated at sea, like there was literally nothing else there. I'm gonna put a pin in it here for the boat, but don't worry, I'll get back to it later in the video. The 4 mains get thrown off the side of the ship and end up at sea. I was browsing the various comments of Mort Part 23 and I stumbled upon a mini theory made by user The Hacking Burger. It touches on Alex and some of the weird coincidences that he brings to the rest of DreamWorks. I'll dive more into that comment and Alex in its own separate video. But there was one bit that especially caught my eye. It read, then the penguins hijacked the ship that was supposed to take them safely to Africa. Maybe we can get more insight about this the more we learn about the penguins. But Alex and co. crates fall off overboard seemingly by accident. But it is the waves and tides that move them towards Madagascar. Waves and tides that are controlled by the moon. And that pretty much sums it all up perfectly. The waves and tides are guided by the moon, which happens to be a sky god, and they bring them to the island, the nation of Madagascar. The lore that I'm about to uncover is shocking. It's terrifying. It's tragic. We get a fairly big look at what the island looks like. With all of its beauty, the sunny tropical climate that the nation brings almost makes you fully forget about all of the horrors that surround it. The kingdom of lemurs reside on the island where King Julian XIII reigns over them. Maurice is his royal advisor and his best friend, and of course, there is death. Mort the lemur. I found this in the post, but I've also been considering this revelation for quite some time, but since we all know that Mort is the Grim Reaper, that he is immortal, why would he stay on such a lonely and isolated island in the middle of nowhere for over 50 years after changing into the body of a mouse lemur? The response to that could not be more simple. It's because the island of Madagascar is Mort's prison. Quick little debrief on Mort for those who haven't yet been introduced to the Mort theory, but our good little buddy isn't actually our good little buddy that we originally thought. YouTube channel The Theorizer uncovered roughly 2 years ago that Mort is in fact the Grim Reaper, as shown in the masterpiece of a spin-off show, All Hail King Julian. He consumes the life forms of different personas of himself, don't ask. I love James the Ice Queen's little description of Mort in this show. Silently pulling the strings. Wow. But why was he trapped? Well, long before the events of the Madagascar saga, Mort was first made to be a sky god of sorts. His name was Death, for he is Mort. I have a bit more to uncover from his backstory, but it appears that Mort was banished from Franquilla, the heaven of the sky gods. He became a lemur, and yet his name is Death, for he is Mort, the lemur. In a way, he was kept on the island of Madagascar in order for the mysterious and oh so powerful sky gods to keep an eye on him. His prison. Now, this next part is going to go a bit out the window, but don't worry, I'll make sure to bring it back before it goes too far. Oops, already did. Mort uses psychological oneirokinesis, I don't know how to pronounce that word, I'm sorry, as I touched on in my Red Room theory, to manipulate people and to mess with their brains. In All Hail King Julian, Mort manipulates people into giving him their souls and babies. I'm not even joking. He messes with people's brainy parts many times. On another note, there's Todd. I'm not going to go into any depth here, but let's just say that Mort and Todd are a lot more alike in terms of abilities than you would think. Todd Theory Part 4 coming in a few months. So Mort is a mind manipulator to many on Madagascar. But enough about only Mort, let's add in the main villain of the Madagascar franchise, or at the very least the best one, Chantal Dubois. At the end of Madagascar 3, Dubois gets shot in the back by Mort. She's hit with the same sort of tranquilizer dart that was used in the first movie with the main four. She and her simp henchman, or whatever, wake up in crates, headed for Madagascar. This just got even more plausible. It could very well be the afterlife. Everything adds up. But of course, that's not the end. Madagascar isn't really the afterlife. And here's why. Franquilla. If Madagascar really was the afterlife, then unfortunately, Franquilla wouldn't have existed. On top of that, at numerous points throughout the course of the show, Julian and others go to different islands for different reasons. I guess that both of these two issues with the theory could be fixed. I don't know if Franquilla could just be some kind of secondary afterlife for the purpose of watching over Madagascar and Mort. As for the different islands, I guess that it could just be some sort of archipelago that could make up the afterlife altogether. But for now, there really isn't enough evidence to make this theory full canon. But I have something else to say. So what could be the meaning behind this fortress of an art piece? What could possibly be the tragedy of the Madagascar island? See, the answer isn't really found in the discoveries and hidden secrets and revelations. It's more about basic common sense. Brace yourself. The island of Madagascar is the focal point, the head location for those on the animal side. That's all there is to it. No massive unexpected revelation, no heaven or hell, it's just as simple as that. And with that being said, let's explain why and how this came to be. If you're considering clicking off the video because of how shockingly unshocking this sum up was, don't. Have some faith because oh boy, it gets even darker. For all time in history throughout the everlasting lore of DreamWorks animation, there has said to have been one final climactic war between human and animal taking place somewhere towards the very end of the timeline. This war will be the deciding factor on whether or not Mort finally ends up triumphant. We get glimpses of the aftermath of this war with the Croods showing that yes, animals did end up winning, which leads on to the Kung Fu Panda films at the end showing that all humans are gone. And in the midst of all this chaos, Madagascar marks the point where animals are rising up in intelligence and power. They are bloodthirsty, and such terror can be seen with not only Mort, but also the penguins in their destructive nature. Hell, all of them are symptomatic of this. But what of the island? The island of Madagascar? It gives me chills just saying this, but you know how the humans have their little giant HQ somewhere based in France? Well, the animal side has their personal headquarters too. Where, you ask? Where? Madagascar. This is somewhat of a safe zone for the intelligent creatures that were out to get and eliminate all of the humans. The people side, however, saw through their ruse and have made several attempts to invade the island and or get information on the natives. that being the lemurs. Starting off with the one that I'm sure that a lot of you guys had missed when watching All Hail King Julian Season 6, Episode 6, One More Cut Part 2. It's one of the very first lines in the episode where Julian talks to his kingdom about this little old shipwreck that occurred that nobody seemed to survive. The washed up ship had tons, and I mean tons, of coffee beans on it. That little old shipwreck was an attempt to take over Madagascar by humans, and they treat it as just a silly old throwaway line. Clever. And in that very same episode, it's understood that there are animals on the island that coerce with humans and do business with them. As weird as that sounds, humans here are simply trying to earn their trust so that it's a whole lot easier to take over afterwards. Then there's the more obvious examples of this, like when we literally get an entire episode that bases around these quote-unquote field biologists that terrorize the kingdom. They take Mort for some strange reason. Just Mort. Like, out of everyone in the entire island, they had to examine Mort for stuff. This is later proven in the show in the episode Raiders of the Lord Shark, when Mort outright tells another character that scientists are in fact under the impression that Mort might be alien. On another note, the scientists also took Hector's mother for examination, but I'm not going to reveal everything about these scientists and what they're doing in Madagascar, mostly because I've already made an entire video on them, so go check that one out. The summary of it though is that these scientists are actually in Madagascar for the sake of studying Mort and the rest of the lemurs. Go watch the video after this. And then, of course, there's the actual plane from the show and the movies. The Theorizer briefly touched on this during Mort Part 23, but I want to go into a bit more detail here. As we can see right off the bat, this plane actually flew in from France and crash-landed in Madagascar. The people on board didn't survive the crash, but the plane stayed in the baobab tree for many years. In fact, I might even be obliged to say that this whole plane crash thing happened even before any of the various Julian kings. Masakura actually says to Julian in Pineapple of My Eye, all of the Julian kings who have sat on that throne, and there you go. It did happen prior to the Julian kings. There's several other small details here and there that the humans made to get to Madagascar, like for example, how the boat plays a pretty significant part in the attempted invasion of the island. Further proof of this can be seen in the control room, where there is literally an entire diagram of Madagascar on the wall to the side, showing that this ship had specific plans to go there, not for dropping the animals off in the wild, because in case you had forgotten, they make a very big deal about how they're all meant to go to Kenya. So why is Madagascar on the wall, huh? Easy. Invasion. The island of Madagascar is the focal point, the safe zone if you will, for all those on the animal side. The sky gods use it to trap Mort and have it as his prison. People have tried to venture into the deadly jungle for research, or even sometimes in the hopes of taking the island over, as it is where the animals are most safe, and stripping that away from them would leave them a big, giant step above vulnerable. This island is frightening. I'm afraid of it, and you should be too.